Hey everybody, Kevin Baxter at Baxter's Garage and Pro Twin Performance back again for another quick tech minute. Today, I'm going to demonstrate to you several things. One, how to test the ethanol content of the fuel that you are purchasing, tell you how you can make your own ethanol-free fuel, and explain why ethanol treatments don't work exactly how you may think they do. So stick with us. I've done several videos talking about ethanol fuels. One, in fact, was one on how to get very high octane fuel at the pump, of course, which I was referring to E85. I'm going to put a link in the cards up here, so you at the end of the video, and also at the link, so that you can refer back to that video. I went a little more in depth as to some of the issues with ethanol fuels, and so after this one, take a look at that one. This will probably be the last video I do on ethanol fuels, because quite frankly I think we've beat this horse to death, but I wanted you guys to see a couple of interesting things. So one thing that I've done is I bought one of these desiccant bags, and I've had this bag hanging in the shop for 1 week. You can see we've got a considerable amount of water in here on the bottom. All right, now of course we are in the South and we average 80-90% humidity. Actually, we've had days where we were over 100% humidity and it wasn't raining. But this is a week's worth of water in this one bag in a stationary location here in the warehouse. The reason I show you that, yes, it's true, a gas tank probably would not absorb that much water. However, your gas tanks are vented, so they will absorb moisture over time through the ventilation system in the gas tank. In this graduated cylinder, I have 100 milliliters of what I believe is 10% ethanol fuel from my local gas station. In this cylinder, I have 20 milliliters of water. Let's mix the two together. Now let's agitate it a little bit. Ethanol is hydrophilic, which means that it attracts moisture. It absorbs moisture considerably. We have added 20 milliliters of water, and we're watching where this line falls. Now, what has happened is by adding the water has absorbed all of the ethanol, or I should say the ethanol has absorbed all of the water, and it becomes heavier than the fuel around it. So it settles to the bottom. Now if we look here, notice how the fuel is still cloudy, and we see the solid line right here where I'd added 20 milliliters of water. If this were ethanol-free fuel, our line would be at 20 milliliters down here representing the water. Well, at this point right here, you can see that it's somewhat cloudy. It's cloudy because it still has moisture suspended in the fuel and the ethanol. We give this some time, it won't be as cloudy anymore, but you can see already at this point the line is now at 26 milliliters. What that means is we've pulled 6% out of the original 100 milliliters of ethanol out of this mixture. So let's give it a few more minutes, let it settle, and see how far this line comes up. Okay, so we waited about 15 to 20 minutes. You can see that the fuel's much clearer here at the top, as well as the mixture that's down here at the bottom. It's a little cloudy. So where did we end up? We're at 32 milliliters. So again, what's happened here is I had 100 milliliters of 10% ethanol fuel. I added 20 milliliters of water, yet our line is now at 32 milliliters. So what that's telling us is 20 minus 32, difference of 12. We have 12% ethanol in this fuel, labeled 10% at the pump. So this is a quick and easy way that you can test the actual ethanol content of the fuel that you're buying. You can also see what happens when it becomes saturated with water. You get this sludge down here at the bottom. Now remember what this is. At the bottom of what could be your gas tank is a mixture of pure water and ethanol. Okay, so what happens when your tank sits on your 10% ethanol, as more moisture is absorbed into your fuel, it settles into the bottom of the tank. When you hit the switch, you're blasting the entire system with water and ethanol. So how do you make your own ethanol-free fuel? Exactly the same way. Basically, you can take a 5-gallon jug, you put 4 gallons of 10% ethanol fuel in it, add a gallon of water, and let it sit for a few hours. You can either then drain the water from the bottom. If you put a spigot, I've seen, you can put a spigot on the bottom of the container, however you want to do it, or you can siphon the fuel out of the top, and you will have separated the ethanol from the fuel, and what you have floating on the top is ethanol-free fuel. The downside to that is ethanol raises octane. So when you remove the ethanol from the fuel, if you started with a 93 octane base, you're going to end up with somewhere around an 88 octane when you're done. Now, if you cannot get ethanol-free fuels where you live, this may be a good alternative for you to do this in your garage, to run it on your lawnmowers. But some of the moisture, unless you wait 24 hours or so, can still stay suspended in the fuel. Now, the way that ethanol treatments work, the ethanol treatments change the specific gravity of the fuel. And essentially what it does is it allows the water to stay in suspension in the fuel mixture and helps to prevent it from separating like you've seen here. The issue with that is that your fuel still contains the moisture and it still contains the ethanol. So even though the water is in suspension and it doesn't gel at the bottom like you see here, it's still suspended in the fuel. So the BTUs of the fuel are still lowered, BTUs being stored energy of the fuel. So regardless, it's still not going to run as well. Now it will prevent the sludge and can prevent this issue here, but you still have the contaminated fuel problem. It doesn't just go away. The moisture doesn't just go away. The bottom line is, guys, when you store your bike, if it's going to be sitting for longer than about a month, I would highly recommend running the fuel as low as you can, filling the tank with ethanol-free fuel and a little bit of stable, and that gas is going to last you quite a long time and you won't have these issues. So anyway, guys, I hope this helps. I hope it puts the issue to bed, and thanks again for watching. Don't forget a couple things. This Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, we go live with Eric from Legend Suspension. I'm really excited about that because we're going to be talking about how important good suspension is to safety, handling, and your braking system and all that type of stuff. So we're pretty excited for that. Be sure to tune in, bring all the questions you got. We're going to get them all answered. Thanks again for watching, guys. Thanks for following the channel, and thanks to all of our members for supporting us as well. Take care of yourselves and each other.